Iran has once again attacked targets linked to the United States in Iraq, and at the same time, new explosions have been reported in sensitive areas within Iranian territory itself. This Thursday, May 7, 2026, the crisis is intensifying because the attacks in northern Iraq hit facilities linked to Kurdish groups supported by Washington. All this is happening even amid negotiations that are trying to prevent a new wave of bombings by the United States against the Iranian regime. I'll tell you all about this in a moment, but right now you'll want to subscribe to the channel to stay well informed with real-time information at the highest journalistic quality ever seen, with the credibility standard of Milson Alves News. Reports indicate that Iranian drones hit an area north of Erbil in Iraqi Kurdistan, where members and relatives linked to the PDKI, an Iranian Kurdish opposition group in exile, live. Initial information mentions injuries, but there is still no definitive count of deaths. The main point is that Tehran did not choose this target by chance. The Kurdish region of Iraq has become a pressure point against the Iranian regime because it shelters opposition groups that Tehran accuses of acting with external support. By attacking there, the Revolutionary Guard sends a direct message. Any force that helps Washington or puts pressure on the regime from within will be treated as a target. The attack also exposes a dangerous flaw for the United States. Washington tries to keep the ceasefire alive, tries to negotiate the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and tries to prevent the war from entering an even harsher phase. But Iran takes advantage of this hesitation to attack allies, test defenses, and measure how far it can go without receiving a devastating response. That's when the situation becomes serious. In the west of Tehran, and also in areas near the south of Iran, explosions and the activation of air defenses increased the sense of panic. The Anadolu agency reported that Iranian media attributed the sounds of explosions near Keshim Island to the activation of air defense systems against small drones and unmanned reconnaissance aircraft. Iranian authorities said that there was damage on the island, but the mere activation of air defenses shows that Tehran is also under pressure and fears new incursions in areas connected to the Strait of Hormuz. Iraq has already been used several times as a battleground in the standoff between the United States and Iran, but each new attack increases the chance of a tougher American response. In January 2020, after the death of Qasem Soleimani in an American attack in Baghdad, Iran fired missiles at the Ain al-Assad base and at a facility in the Kurdish region. Initially, Washington said there were no casualties, but later American soldiers were treated for traumatic brain injuries. That precedent carries a lot of weight. In 2020, Tehran attacked to save its own honor after Soleimani's death, but avoided directly killing large numbers of American soldiers because it knew that crossing a red line could provoke open war. In 2026, the situation is more dangerous because there is already a war underway, there is already a blockade, and ships have already been hit. There is already direct conflict in the Strait of Hormuz, and there is already pressure on American bases at various points in the Middle East. What used to be a calculated retaliation now seems like a strategy of permanent attrition. The Washington Post published an investigation with satellite images indicating that Iranian attacks caused much greater damage to American military facilities in the Middle East than had been publicly acknowledged. The analysis identified at least 228 structures or pieces of equipment damaged or destroyed at American bases, including hangars, barracks, fuel depots, aircraft, radars, and air defense equipment. Deaths and more than 400 injured people have also been reported since the beginning of the war. This information changes the gravity of the crisis. Iran does not appear just as a regime making empty threats. It appears as an enemy that managed to exploit vulnerabilities at fixed bases, use drones, attack infrastructure, and wear down the image of American invulnerability. This does not mean that Tehran is winning an open war against the United States. That's why the American response now needs to be calculated, but also firm. Without a clear response, the Iranian regime tends to interpret silence as weakness. The history of the Gulf shows that Iran usually backs down when it realizes that the military cost has become too high. In 1988, during the so-called Operation Praying Mantis, the United States launched attacks against Iranian targets. The operation targeted platforms used for military purposes and Iranian ships, becoming one of the largest American naval actions since World War II. The difference is that today war is not fought only with ships and traditional missiles. Iran uses cheap drones, militias, scattered attacks, and economic pressure. This combination allows the regime to attack without always bearing the full cost of escalation. That's how it was in attacks against American troops in Iraq and Syria in recent years. Reuters reported that Iran-backed groups have attacked American forces in the region more than 150 times since October 2023. And Washington has responded at different times with attacks against facilities used by them. Milícias ligadas a Tehran. Examples from other nations reinforce the same pattern. When groups backed by Iran attacked Saudi Arabia in Abqaiq in 2019, the global energy market felt the impact immediately because a single action against oil infrastructure was enough to scare buyers and governments. When the Houthis, also linked to the Iranian axis, started attacking ships in the Red Sea, several companies changed routes, increased costs, and exposed how militias can affect global trade without having a traditional navy. Now, in the Strait of Hormuz, Iran is trying to apply the same logic on a larger scale. It is attacking the support network around the Americans. This network includes Kurdish groups, logistical bases, local forces, and governments that accept the military presence of Washington. The goal is to make each American ally, each country, potentially weaker. It's a war of nerves designed to isolate Washington and turn every base into a possible target. The problem for Iran is that this game can also unite adversaries. Israel is already closely monitoring the crisis, because any weakening of American pressure could give new momentum to Iran's nuclear program and to Tehran's allies in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. France has mobilized its power in the fight against terrorism, making the country more democratic. The fight against terrorism has made the country more democratic. France has mobilized its power against terrorism, making the country more democratic. This is the riskiest part of the crisis. France has mobilized its power in a fight for democracy. Terrorism, and the country becomes more democratic. In the fight against terrorism, the country becomes more democratic. The news links are in the description. France has mobilized its power and made the country more democratic. And in the end, take a look at the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Mills and Alves news community.